Welcome to Ranks FC. It's time to crunch some numbers here on the channel. We're going to look at some of the best overperforming and the worst underperforming teams this season so far. And Sam, you're going to set out a little bit how we're going to do this.
That's quite simple, really. We're just going to look at expected goals. We're going to look at the number of goals that these teams would have been expected to score and measure it against how many they have actually scored, good or bad. Then take a look at whether or not maybe that's sustainable or whether it's a bit of a flash in the pan. So we've got the two most overperforming teams and the two worst performing teams. And we'll start with the overperformers, and we'll start with Montpellier in Liga. They are 9.1 over their XG. They have scored 9.1 goals more than they would be expected to based on the shots that they have taken. It's no perfect science, but this is a serious difference and a serious outlier. What actually worries me the most is that while they're the second highest scorers in Liga in a potentially unsustainable way, they've conceded 15 goals, which means when these goals start to dry up and these chances aren't taken in such a clinical nature, the fact that they're shipping so many goals at the other end is going to start to really hurt them. They're only mid-table in Liga now, even with this overperformance. What happens when the goals dry up a little bit? The goals continue to fly in at the other end. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one for Montpellier because obviously they are expected to be sort of mid-table towards that relegation battle. That's kind of where they're going to be within the side and within the kind of league structure. But your point stands here. It's what happens if these goals do dry up. Now, obviously, the finishing has been excellent, and that is to be commended. And hopefully, for their sake, that continues because they seem to be on a good run in front of goal. But I am worried about where this leaves them if this should regress to the mean. Yeah,
we're not criticising good finishing here for Montpellier or the next team. The point is, though, that no team really gets through a season at performing at this level of expectation or over expectation. No team really does. Not even Man City can really sustain this. Or if you do it, it has to be a Man City type. You have to have Aguero and Haaland. You don't have Montpellier strikers. That's not how it works.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next team.
All right, well, also overperforming, Union Berlin. 8.1 goals over their expected tally.
Top of the Bundesliga.
Geraldo Becker has been one of the big names at the start of the season, and he is the top scorer in the Bundesliga. He is 4.9 goals over his expected tally. He is massively overperforming his expected tally. He's the biggest overperformer in Europe. Now, Geraldo Becker is a player that not very many people know who he is.
Yeah, not bad for a converted winger, this.
Not bad. But the fact that not that many people know who he is would suggest that this, of course, will regress to the mean and mean that Union Berlin aren't quite so prolific. Now, where Union Berlin succeed, of course, is where Montpellier fail. They do have a good defence, which means that if the goals do start to dry up, if they're less clinical up front, it won't matter as much because no goals go in at the other end.
Yeah, I mean, Urs Fischer is a wonderful coach. And I think what we're seeing with this Union team at the moment is that they're winning. Obviously, they battered Hertha in the derby. We've seen them win a couple of games by a lot of goals. They had a 6-0 earlier in the season. We've seen a couple of 2s and 3s as well. My question about this is this sustainable in terms of how many goals they're scoring? Probably not.
Probably not.
Is it sustainable in terms of them continuing to win most games? I think the answer is yes, because you can see these wins turning into 1-0s, to 2-1s, because of how good this defensive setup is. Now, Becker and Jordan, who's had an excellent start to the season as well, 3 goals, 2 assists, probably regress a little bit considering where they are right now. But equally, I just still think that Union will find ways to win games, and I think they're going to be in this top 4 conversation come the end of the season. And that's massively impressive.
I hope so. I mean, they've got the European schedule to contend with, but they contended with that last year and it worked out okay. The defence is solid. Their goalkeeper didn't make a save in their last game against Wolfsburg. Like, not one single save. He barely did anything. He might as well have not turned up. If that's the case, if that's the platform you're building off, sure, you can allow for some regression to the mean on the finishing. It's fine.
Yeah, okay. Let's flip it over to the underperformers, shall we?
Yeah, Roma have scored 6.8 fewer goals than they would have been expected to this season. That's basically 7-goal underperformance. Their XG for the game against Atalanta was just over 3.
How they didn't score
they didn't score
this
one.
Game, and how they didn't score, I will never know. Like, it's one of those where I was trying to explain it on the podcast this week. I was trying to explain it on various things. I just don't know how it happened. Like, I physically do not know how the ball did not end up in the back of the net.
Yeah, it's just freak of nature stuff, really. I mean, Dybala had a couple of games where he was very wasteful. Then he got injured for the Atalanta game. Zaniolo missed a lot of chances in the opener. Tammy Abraham's only scored 2 goals so far, and he's missed a few good chances. Actually, the biggest culprit here, statistically, is Pellegrini, who we all know is fantastic, but there is no more wasteful player in Europe with shooting this season in the top 5 leagues.
That won't be helped by the missed penalty, obviously, against Napoli, but
even on a non-penalty goal basis, he's 2.4 behind. He owes Roma 2.5 goals. He's missing chances. They're all missing chances. It's been a problem for them across the board. Now, this will improve because the underlying numbers suggest that they're creating all the chances in the world and they just need to finish them. And we know that Tammy and Dybala and Zaniolo and Pellegrini are class, so this will improve. So Roma are ticking along okay in the league despite massively underperforming in front of goal, which you can paint as something that's quite bad. But actually, Jose Mourinho will point to that and go, well, we're only going to get better. And when we do, we're going to batter people.
Yeah, it feels that way, doesn't it? It feels like Roma are kind of poised to start a very good run. Now, obviously, you worry about the confidence levels dropping if those finishing statistics don't start to improve because people are like, hang on, we're playing so well and we're not getting the results that we feel like we deserve out of it. But considering where Roma are on the table and how badly they've underperformed in front of goal, I think it's probably a good sign for them in terms of where they finish in Serie A this season.
They should be confident that this is going to turn around almost immediately. This is not the situation like with Bayer Leverkusen, who are like spiralling out of control confidence-wise. We've seen Jonathan Tah talk about how he can't understand how this is happening. We're getting none of that from Roma. They just know that their chances are going to go in pretty soon.
Yeah, the only kind of counter I would give to that is that in the Atalanta game, I think the frustration boiled over. And they lost their heads. There was moments where, Zaniolo wanted about 3 penalties of one, which was maybe questionable. The other 2 were just fully not penalties. Mourinho sent off for challenging a decision that just clearly was the right decision. And there is that kind of sense of head loss a little bit sometimes with Roma, especially under Mourinho. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It's a team that are passionate, who fight for each other, who get in each other's kind of corner when they need to. But equally, there are moments where you think if Roma had channeled that energy properly, they probably would have scored. And instead, they channeled it by trying to win things that they just weren't working for them. And that's obviously a question mark. But it takes us nicely on to our last team.
Yeah, but we're talking about Nice now. I mean, they're 4.1 goals behind on where they should be, according to the stats. And we've got one particular culprit here, someone to not pin it all on, but we need to talk about Nicola Pepe, who has taken 16 shots since joining on loan. Just 3 have managed to go on target, and he scored just a single goal. He is the main reason why these shots are not going in. He's taking bad shots, he's taking silly shots, he's obviously getting frustrated, and it's really hurting Nice. Now, he's not the only one, because, Guiri, who we really like, is also underperforming.
He finally scored a goal, though, to be fair to him.
He did get one, yeah. Laborde has also missed. They're all missing chances across the board. And again,
across the board.
And you're probably looking at this and going, well, they're all good players. It will be okay. But Nice have been carnage top to bottom, haven't they? So it's not just about the finishing, really, that has let them down this season. It's been wild. And they need to figure a lot of this out, including the finishing, to start shooting back up the table.
Yeah, this would actually also be worse if it wasn't for Andy Delort, who is still ticking along quite nicely on the goal front and scoring some important goals for them. So there are those kind of questions to deal with as well. But I'm worried for Nice. Now, obviously, we've already heard talk of them deciding they might be switching managers in this international break. Lucien Favre under pressure already. Pochettino already being sounded out by this project to see if he'd be interested in taking over. Now, it's an interesting one. It would be a project, and Pochettino has done his best work, I think, when building teams up from a position. So there's that kind of question mark, and if that comes through, it'd be a really, really intriguing one. But there's also this side feels like a huge mishmash of personalities. It feels a little bit like, in some ways, it feels a little bit like when Manchester City were first taken over and they just bought random sporadic players from other Premier League teams who they thought were playing quite well. That's where I feel Nice are at this summer. We've seen some very, very strange transfers. Ross Barkley's obviously there, Aaron Ramsey's there, Joe Bryan from Fulham, Mads from Brentford, the aforementioned Nicola Pepe. It just does feel like stick them all in and see what happens. So those are the question marks over Nice, and I am worried that this isn't going to get immediately better because they feel a bit clunky. And yes, obviously the numbers suggest they're getting in good positions, but equally I think that there are certain players dragging this number upwards already, and they're being asked to do a lot of legwork.
Well, let's hope Pepe gets better quite soon, or maybe starts showing a bit more
Lovely player
restraint.
to watch, and lots of fun.
Yeah.
But just very frustrating in the final third.
Yeah, very frustrating. Well, they all are, unfortunately. So things have to get better for Nice. They literally can't get much worse, given the quality of the squad. But things will get better for Roma too, and we cross our fingers and our toes that Union Berlin can stick around at the top and make things super interesting in the Bundesliga.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for watching this video on the teams under and overperforming so far this season. We'll see you soon. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe for more from us at Ranks FC.